Greetings and welcome to College Press Box, here to talk everything sports. We've got a stacked show tonight, ranging from the Texas spring game this past weekend to every other sport playing, so stay tuned. Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome back to College Press Box. I'm your host, Ross Labesnke, and we've got a great show for you tonight, so let's jump right into business. It's never a bad time to talk football, and with the new stallion Tom Herman coming in, anticipation was high at Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium this past weekend at the Texas spring game. Our own Nick Kuholtz was there to ask the new coach how he's transitioning to the new job and what challenges he's faced along the way.
For the first time in 5 months, football returned to Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium on Saturday as the Texas Longhorns had their annual orange versus white scrimmage. But since the final game of the 2016 season, a lot has happened in the Texas football world. Doak Walker Award winner and star running back Deontay Foreman declared for the NFL draft. Charlie Strong was relieved of his duties as head of the football team, and Tom Herman was announced as the 30th head coach in program history. On Saturday afternoon, Herman and his brand new staff had their final opportunity of the spring to check out their new team in full uniform before the pads come off until August. However, the coaching staff didn't have their focus on the orange and white game individually, but rather all of spring practice as a whole. They used this time to show what they require from their new team.
Really, the only goal from spring practice was to learn how to practice and learn what the expectations are in this program and learn that there's no such thing as just another day in this program, that when you walk in those doors, it is fourth and inches.
The coaches have only been with their new team for just 3 months, but Herman immediately emphasized the importance of making sure his players were committed to the change being made.
The buy-in is probably the most difficult part, and we've got that for the most part from a lot of guys, and now it's just a matter of, again, the execution consistently of that intensity from the time you step in the building to the time you put your head down on the pillow.
Of the 95 student athletes on the current Longhorn football roster, only 3 players have been a part of a winning season during their time at the University of Texas. For a program that has such a rich tradition of winning and success, the team has experienced quite the opposite in the past 7 years. With Charlie Strong out and Tom Herman now in, it feels like another fresh start for the Longhorns. But the calmness and patience of the UT fan base is just about empty. And while it seems unfair to put such high expectations on Herman and the new staff already in just year 1, it sure feels like now or never for Texas football. From DKR, Nick Kuholtz, College Press Box.
Thanks, Nick. And next up, we have our stallion, Eric Goodman, recapping the game story of the QB battle and the defense's big stop at the end of the game.
The brunt of the attention at the Texas orange and white spring game was focused on the men in the black jerseys as Longhorn fans got their first side-by-side look at quarterbacks Shane Buechele and Sam Ehlinger. It was the sophomore Buechele with the better day by some distance, going 23 of 39 for 369 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Ehlinger struggled playing mostly against the first-team defense. But were the spring game performances enough for head coach Tom Herman to declare a starter for the fall?
No way. I think a healthy fear of losing your job is just that, healthy. And Shane knows we have a lot of confidence in him. But to say that he's won the job in 12 padded practices when he doesn't even get hit, that would be a bit premature.
Despite a bizarre scoring and timing structure, the game eventually came down to a do-or-die 4th and goal where the Texas defense made a statement stop.
On that game-deciding goal line stand, Texas fans got a glimpse of the fight that in many ways had been missing in recent years here at DKR. Although Coach Herman knows there's still a lot of work to be done before the Longhorns retake the field in September.
Thank God we don't have to play tomorrow, but we're on the right track. The buy-in is probably the most difficult part, and we've got that for the most part from a lot of guys, and now it's just a matter of, again, the execution consistently of that intensity from the time you step in the building to the time you put your head down on the pillow.
For the 25,000 fans in attendance, the product on the field more closely resembled a midweek practice than a September Saturday ball game.
I feel like it was just another practice, so we were just out there to get better, and we were all just competing like we do every practice.
But that's not to say there wasn't a lot on the line for the two Texas sides.
With this mentality and this environment, everybody's been pretty competitive. So, I mean, with them losing, I know they felt that pretty bad. And then the winners, we all celebrated like we just won, something important for real. So I think with that mentality, it should help us going forward.
It remains to be seen if that winning mentality will carry over into the fall when all of the eyes of Texas will be on Tom Herman's new-look Longhorns. From DKR Memorial Stadium, I'm Eric Goodman, College Press Box.
Thanks for that, Eric. Joining us now are our football analysts, Grant Michaels and Steve Helwick. Boys, give us the lowdown.
Thanks, Ross. The Orange team came out on top 52-51 in the annual Orange and White spring game this past weekend. There were bright moments on both sides of the ball. But Steve, with what you've seen this past weekend in the spring game and Texas's recruiting class, what do you see as the Horns' largest weakness heading into September?
Texas's biggest weakness still persists from last year, and that has to do with the secondary. The secondary did not show many signs of improvement on Saturday. Whenever the quarterbacks had time to throw, they kept getting burned by the receivers. I mean, that's good for the receivers, but the secondary really needs to address the coverage and just play tighter up on the guys. I mean, the Big 12, it's going to be a problem because there's so many air raid offenses in there. So many teams that are fascinated with the passing game, and Texas really needs to improve that before football season starts in September.
Right. You mentioned the Big 12 was fascinated with air raids. Teams like Oklahoma, TCU, and Texas Tech, that seems to be their whole game plan, which will definitely test these Texas cornerbacks during the September run for the Big 12 title. Freshman running back Toneel Carter made his debut. What role do you see him playing this year alongside Kyle Porter and Chris Warren?
Toneel Carter's in high school. He's still a young guy. He has plenty of room to develop from now until September. But I really liked his progression he showed Saturday, especially playing with the first-team offense. They had him a lot of times as a pass catcher. They showed that he can be a pass-catching threat, maybe a third-down running back, and loves those halfback screens with him. And given the injury histories of Chris Warren III and Kyle Porter, there's a good chance we'll see Carter get some playing time next year, some carries in the backfield, and a lot for screen passes. What do you think his role will be?
Well, I think that when you looked at the spring game, you saw a lot of screens and just little flank routes, and he has the ability to turn something into nothing, which is something that I think Texas could really use next year, especially in the backfield with the departure of Foreman gone to the NFL. Coming back to the other side of the ball, the lack of defensive line seems to be a concern for the Horns head coach Tom Herman. He mentioned this in a press conference, that this was a very high priority for him and his team. Considering the atrocity that was the Horns defense last year, is this something that Horns fans should be expecting next year, or do you think Herman can turn this ship around?
They may not have a lot of depth at defensive line, but they really are top-heavy. You could see the first-team defense against that second-team offensive line. They kept permeating through the offensive line, getting to Sam Ehlinger. They kept applying the pressure on him, and that was a promising sign. New defensive coordinator, Todd Orlando, he's a blitz guy. He loves running those pass-rush blitz packages. You saw last year at Houston when they played Louisville. They sacked Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson 11 times.
That was a big game.
Yeah, it was, and you can see Todd Orlando bringing more blitz packages to Texas, and I could see with this defensive line gaining and the whole front seven gaining more experience with Malik Jefferson being a junior, Anthony Wheeler. You can see Poona Ford and Nashawn Hughes. They're all getting up there in experience. They can shed off that youth and become experienced pass rushers, and that's really going to pay off come football season.
Well, Herman definitely has his work cut out for him come this September, and that is all the time we have to talk about the orange and white game. Ross, back to you.
Thank you guys for your excellent insight. It's always a pleasure having you two on. When we come back, Nick Walters and Tyler King will be joining us to talk every other sport we can. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to College Press Box. I'm your host, Ross Labesnke. And joining me now at the desk is the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Walters. Nick, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here. I'm ready to talk some Texas sports.
All right, let's do it. So let's talk to men's golf first. Junior Doug Gim won his first medalist honors on Saturday as the number 15 Longhorns won the UT Longhorn Shootout at UT Golf Club. Gim finished the day under par as he shot 6 under at 65. He has now shot 16 of his 29 rounds this entire season at or under par. Pretty impressive. 3 Longhorns placed in the top 5 at the Invitational, including junior Scotty Scheffler, who placed second, finishing 1 stroke behind at 5 under. Sophomore Steven Cervoni tied for third, and freshman Spencer Sussman finished even. The Longhorns beat runner-up Lamar by 37 strokes. Texas looks forward to postseason play as they will travel to Prairie Dunes Golf Club to play in the Big 12 tournament Monday through Wednesday.
Despite entering Easter Sunday with the lead, the 20th ranked Lady Horns finished a single stroke behind Michigan State in the Lady Buckeye Invitational. Texas made a tournament best 41 birdies, finishing 26 over par. In what was Texas' 9th top 5 finish in their last 10 tournaments this year, junior Sophia Schubert shined. Schubert won the Lady Buckeye Invitational by 5 strokes at the Scarlet Course, earning her first medalist honor of the season. Texas kicks off postseason play in the Big 12 Championship at San Antonio's Dominion Golf Club this Friday.
This past week, the men's tennis team went up against the formidable Baylor Bears, ranked number 4 in the nation, in fact, on Wednesday. The lone victory for the Longhorns was a straight-set single win from senior George Goldhoff, but it would not be enough as the Longhorns lost 1-4. But that wasn't all for the men's tennis as they faced their in-state rival, the Battle of I-35 Texas State, on senior day at the Caswell Tennis Center. The Longhorns avenged their loss in Lubbock from last year, winning 4-1. But the story was all about the underclassmen, as freshman Christian Sigsgaard and sophomore Colin Marks got the first victory for Texas on the day. Texas ended up winning comfortably thanks to winning the next 2 points for single matches as well, taking the lead for good. The Horns traveled to Fort Worth to take on the Horned Frogs in the regular season finale.
Singles wins from senior Nita Capricani and freshman Anna Tarati wasn't enough for the Lady Horns last Wednesday. An outmatched 24th-ranked Texas women's tennis team couldn't keep pace with 15th-ranked Baylor, falling 4-2. Promising efforts in singles were too little and too late for Texas to make up for Baylor's early dominance in the doubles portion of the match. Texas resumes dual match play versus another top 25 foe, hosting Kansas this Friday.
Next, we're going to move on to track and field. The Texas Invitational was this past weekend, and the Longhorns made a splash, with many setting their own personal records. Redshirt sophomore Brian Peterson won the discus after a pair of wins on Friday and set a new personal best, throwing at 56.42 meters, moving up to number 3 in the Big 12. The men ran away with the Invitational, taking first place, scoring 131 points, easily defeating second place Auburn by 42. The ladies lost a close one, losing by 10 points to the winning Kansas State Wildcats. Olympic gold medalist Michelle Carter won the shot put competition, starting off the season right by throwing her shot put 18.54 meters. But we have no mention the field athletes for their great performances. They allowed the Longhorn teams to rank as high as they did in both things.
Ahead of Easter, Texas showed Texas Tech no mercy on the diamond, sweeping the Red Raiders with wide margins of victory in all 3 games. Entering the series with the bad taste of being swept by Oklahoma in their mouth, the Longhorns took charge, edging Tech 4-1 on Thursday, 9-5 on Friday, and 11-3 on Saturday. In an offensive flurry, Texas earned a season-high 17 hits Saturday. 9 different Longhorns reached the hit column, led by 3 hit efforts from both freshman catcher Taylor Ellsworth and freshman left fielder Tuesday Dermargozia. Up next for these 23-win Longhorns, a non-conference match against Texas Southern this Wednesday at McCombs Field.
Last week we spoke about how the Longhorns came off a hot weekend, beating their Red River rival Oklahoma. But this week was sort of a mixed bag. Texas avenged their loss from their I-35 rival, Texas State, from a month ago, winning on Tuesday against the Bobcats 9-2. But this past weekend, the Longhorns traveled to Waco to face the Bears, unfortunately losing the 3-game series 1-2. The Bears beat the Longhorns in the first 2 games, 2-6, and a close one 3-4 on Friday and Saturday, respectively. They closed the series on Sunday, though, winning 5-3 thanks to a 2-run homer by Casey Clemens in the 10th inning to put the Horns up for good. Texas plays Texas State again tomorrow at the Dish. And now it's time to welcome in our esteemed colleague and baseball analyst, Tyler King. Tyler, how are you doing today?
Ross, I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for asking. So what happened in games 1 and 2 against Baylor this past weekend? What can they take from those losses and apply to later games? Do you see them making a run in Omaha?
I think Omaha, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves to begin with. But the first thing is, with the Game 1 loss, Nolan Kingham, who's a newbie to the weekend rotation for most of the year, I expected to see some sort of a wall, to see him hit some sort of a wall some point in the season. It's better to see it now, especially the non-conference series coming up this upcoming weekend, where they can give him a little bit of a break, still start him, but maybe not go as long as he has been. But it was expected to see him hit some sort of a wall at some point. But the thing was, you got to tip your lid to Baylor in that first game. They had 4 runs in the 4th inning, I believe, off of just 2-out hits in the inning. So when they're getting 2-out base hits, you just got to tip your lid to them. They're doing their job. In Game 2, the defense really failed the Horns in the 8th inning. There was a couple plays, specifically Ryan Reynolds had a high chopper to him. Normally a play you don't see on the natural grass like you have at Baylor. And he decided to go to second base instead of first, try to get it out. It just led to a couple other things in the inning. Baylor was able to scratch a few runs with 2 outs in that inning as well. And then in the 9th inning, they were able to, they got a walk, and then they got a couple base hits, and that's how they got there. So defense really in that second game. First game, you just got to tip your lid to Baylor.
With only a month remaining in the opening season of the Pierce era, Texas sits at 24-15 on the season, sporting a sub-500 7-8 conference record. Tyler, what areas of weaknesses do you have your eyes on that these Longhorns need to shore up to finish the season strong?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is that there's not like a glaring weakness that they've had the whole season. The pitching staff has done well at times. The offense has done well at times. The defense has been there. The defense has been solid all year. They're number 1. Going into the weekend, they were number 1 in the conference in fielding at a .985 fielding percentage. So the defense hadn't been a problem. They did let them down a little bit this weekend. But the biggest thing I think for Texas is just putting everything together and playing a whole team game consistently. They've had offensive outbreaks like they had on Sunday when they put up 7 runs. They've had games they put up 9, 11 runs. But the pitching has to be able to do their part in those games as well. But also when the pitching doesn't come through, the offense needs to do their job as well. We just need to see a whole team effort and be able to get the wins together and not just individually.
Thank you, Tyler, as always, for supplying us with your wealth of baseball, of Texas knowledge. And of course, Nick Walters for joining me for your insight on everything else. When we come back, we'll be talking Unhooked, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a jiffy.
Hi, welcome back to College Press Box Unhooked segment. I'm Steve Helwick. This Saturday, one of the greatest annual sports events tipped off, the NBA playoffs. So far, we've seen a sneak preview of Game 1 of each series, and the excitement's already through the roof. I mean, perhaps the most intriguing series in the first round this year is that 4-5 Jazz-Clippers matchup we have out west. And the Jazz are making their first playoff appearance since 2012 when they got swept there. Let's roll to the Staples Center for just a dramatic finish to start the weekend. So late in the game, with about 18 seconds left, Chris Paul, who carried the Clippers through the 4th quarter, just banks it in here. But the Jazz, Quinn Snyder's not going to call a timeout. An ISO Joe Johnson takes the ball here, and he's just going to test Jamal Crawford here. Dribbles, then he's going to drive into the paint, and he just shoots the floater. Feels like it's on the rim forever, and bang, it goes in. And the Utah Jazz at the buzzer beat the Clippers by 2 points. Wow, what a finish in Los Angeles. Joe Johnson might be one of the most clutch players in NBA history. He has 8 buzzer beaters in the last 10 seasons. No other player has more than 4. It wasn't the only game, though, on Saturday that came down to the final shot. The first game of the playoffs was also decided on the last field goal attempt of the contest. The red-hot Indiana Pacers, led by Eastern Conference Player of the Month, Paul George and newly acquired Lance Stevenson battled LeBron James, the defending champion Cavaliers, who are currently in a slump. Let's see who can win this 2-7 matchup. So we go to Quicken Loans Arena for the highlights here, and LeBron James, what a dunk he has there. Falls at the end, but nothing short of spectacular. Kyrie Irving, who hit the game-winning shot in last year's finals, just hits another shot there. He's been doing well in the playoffs. But the Pacers would be back here and hit the three right there to come back. Paul George getting ready for the end of the game. But the final play of the game, Paul George decides to pass it off to C.J. Miles rather than take it himself. C.J. Miles off balance. Nope, it doesn't go, and the Cavaliers beat the Pacers just by 1 point to take that 1-0 series lead. Game 2 is going on as we speak right now. The Cavaliers have a commanding lead there. But all the other game ones have finished. We've seen several surprises so far. We saw the 8-seed Bulls on TNT take down the 1-seed Celtics. The 6-seed Bucks handle the Raptors, and the Raptors have now lost 9 straight game ones, always struggling there in Jurassic Park this weekend. Let's name some MVPs of this weekend's action. Giannis Antetokounmpo was nothing short of impressive in his 28-point, 8-rebound performance. He shot over 70%, just efficient all over the board. Another athletic young small forward turned heads this weekend, and that's MVP candidate Kawhi Leonard. But first, let's go back to the Bucks. The Road Warrior Bucks just stormed into Canada and stole that home court advantage with a 97-83 victory. That's going to be an interesting 3-6 series out east. Back to the West, Kawhi Leonard also had a great performance this weekend. 32 points on 11 of 14 shooting. It was just a one-sided victory for the Spurs, who pulled over the Grizzlies. Kawhi, with LaMarcus Aldridge, too. That squad just withstood a strong performance by Marc Gasol from the Grizzlies and to coast to a 111-82 victory out in San Antonio. In the other games this weekend, the Warriors emerged in the fourth quarter to knock off a feisty Blazers team. C.J. McCollum shot very well early in the game, but not enough for the Western Conference champions from the last 2 seasons. And John Wall put on a show, too, in Washington. He beat the Hawks. And Pat Beverly and the Houston Rockets with James Harden, they were way too much for Russell Westbrook and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just cruised to victory at the Toyota Center. And the series isn't looking as close as people might have hoped. The battle of the MVP candidates, Russell Westbrook and James Harden. But now we have all the game ones in the book. And it's time for the series to continue. This is where the fun part, the 2-1 leads, the 3-1 leads, and the NBA playoffs are just going to continue from now on out. But that's all we have for Unhooked today. When we get back, Ross is going to preview some of the action we see in Texas sports this week. It was a fun weekend with the spring game, but we'll get back right to the action in other Texas sports.
And for the last time tonight, welcome back to College Press Box. Let's take a gander at what's going down this week in Longhorn sports. On Tuesday, baseball plays Iowa State at 6:30 p.m. on the Longhorn Network, and also volleyball plays North Texas at 7 p.m. On Wednesday, softball plays Texas Southern at 5 p.m. on the Longhorn Network. On Friday, women's tennis plays Kansas 4 p.m. And also on Friday, our soccer team plays St. Edwards. Also on Friday and Saturday, we have the track and field at various locations. On Friday and Saturday as well, we have softball versus Iowa State on Longhorn Network, baseball versus New Orleans on the Longhorn Network, and women's golf at the Big 12 Championships. On Saturday, the men's tennis is at TCU in Fort Worth. Rowing is at the Clemson Invite, and on Sunday, women's tennis plays Kansas State. You may have heard recently about Tom Herman's P chart, certainly something you don't hear every day, posted in the locker room of the football team. As you can see, it's a diagram showing the different colors of urine, demonstrating how hydrated you are. The higher the color is on the chart, the more hydrated you are. The lower it is, vice versa. Or if you belong in what looks like Texas's color burnt orange in the bottom, you're a bad guy. Quite attention to detail for the new head coach, but that meticulous desire may be one odd example of the wackiness and fire that Texas has needed in the post-Charlie Strong era. It looks like with Coach Herman, you're in or you're out. But that wasn't the only change to the locker room, as Coach Herman and his squad of players took sledgehammers to the locker room and destroyed it, live streaming the event on Facebook. The improvement is quite staggering. The new lockers feature 43-inch flat-screen TVs above the locker, and the lockers each cost $10,500, more than the cost of in-state tuition here at the University of Texas. This new upgrade has taken storm on the internet and has received a decent amount of scrutiny for the change. Well, that's all that we have for you tonight here on College Press Box. Be sure to follow us on social media at TSTV Sports. We'll be back next time at our regular time of 9:30 p.m. and don't forget to tune in on Wednesday to see our sister show, College Crossfire, at 9 p.m. Special thanks to all those behind the camera and in Master Control who make what you see possible. Turn out the lights, the party's over. We'll see y'all next time.